Hello and welcome to the channel. So today we are going to do some Halloween DIYs that I'm super excited to get into and very long awaited. If you're new to the channel, hello, my name is Anchora, where we do Halloween all year round, as well as shopping, decor, and even Halloween art. So it is a lot of fun over here. So make sure you guys give this video a big thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe down below. But let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so today we are going to be doing three different DIYs specifically. But I'm going to show you the items that I got for each one of them as we do them. So for the first one, you're going to need this little bag of snakes. I bought some batteries. They actually go with these LED candles. I purchased these from the dollar store. So they were $1 each, and they actually do come with batteries. But I bought extras, just because it's good to have them on hand. And then since it says what battery it is right on the label there, it was easier to get them. And then you also need some black acrylic paint and then some sort of a gold paint. This is the one I used. I got both of those at Michael's. And then you'll need a jar full of water. But what we'll do is go ahead and remove the plastic from these candles. This one was actually kind of hard to get off. It was really silly. This bottom piece was just being really stubborn. But what we're going to be doing is making these black candles with the gold snakes on them. I will insert a picture here of what they looked like. They were part of the Halloween line at home this year, but they were regular wax candles, and I really loved the design on it. The only issue was that since they were actual candles, you would melt them down and you wouldn't be able to keep them around, or you wouldn't be able to actually use them. So we are making LED versions of them to keep them around for longer than 1 year. And I really like how it matched my aesthetic. A lot of my Halloween stuff is black and gold, along with a few jewel tones here and there. But you can paint these any color that you wish. We're just going with the traditional black and gold, like at home had theirs. So I'm just laying out the snakes here. Originally I wasn't going to use the black ones because I didn't think that the gold was going to show up, but later on I actually decided that I liked the black underneath better, but we will come back to that here in a second. Okay, so we're just going to put a bunch of gold paint here. You are actually going to use a lot of this, and then I just use this big fluffy paintbrush, nothing too specific. But we're just going to go ahead and grab a fairly decent amount of gold paint and start painting the snakes. Now this paint is a little bit transparent. You can definitely see through it, so it did take me quite a few coats to cover it. I know not all gold paints are created equal, so it just depends on what paint that you purchase with how many times you are going to have to cover it. Now you do not have to worry about painting the bottoms because that will be covered by gluing it to the candle. So the only thing I did was paint the top of it. I found that it was easier to hold it by the head while painting the body and then doing the head last. But they are like rubbers, so they're a little stretchy, and it was kind of hard to keep them still. But once you get them painted that first time, they harden up a little bit, and then it's a lot easier to do the additional layers on top of that. Yeah, so I'm just painting those gold here. Again, just paint the tops. You don't need to paint the bottoms at all. Oh, and here's the black one. So I didn't think that the gold was going to show up on the black at all, but it actually ended up being my favorite. So I painted all of the black snakes, and then later on I paint one of my orange snakes black and then paint the gold over it to show that even if you buy the colorful ones, you can paint them all black and put the gold over it to get that same like antique gold kind of a look, is what it reminded me of. But here I am just going ahead and doing those additional gold layers. The more I layered it, the more vibrant it was, and it covered up the color underneath, especially on this blue snake. I definitely didn't want that dark blue coming through. But the black ones were definitely my favorite, and they looked a lot closer to the original candles from at home. So once we've got those painted, it is now time to move on to the black paint. So I'm just going to go ahead and rinse out my gold paintbrush here and set it off to the side. I don't like leaving my paintbrushes sitting in the water because it can be damaging for them. But we're going to go ahead and squeeze a bunch of black in here. I actually used a lot of this black paint, so make sure that you buy the larger bottle and not one of the small tubes. I think they sell black acrylic paint at the dollar store, but this is just something that I had on hand. So we're going to go ahead and take another brush and we're just going to start painting over this white candle with the black paint. Now it is really important to go ahead and do a thin layer first. Don't worry about full coverage because we will go over it again, and that gets rid of these streaky lines, paintbrush lines that you see here, and it also helps get rid of the white that you can see through. This first layer is just to get the paint on there. It's kind of like a base. If you want to do a base with a white and then paint over it black, you can do that as well, but I just figured just doing black for both layers would, you know, be fine. Made more sense to me. But however you want to do it, you're gonna go ahead and paint along the sides for all 4 of these candles. You can do as many as you want. I wanted to do 4, so that's what I have here. And again, the candles came from the dollar store and the snakes came from Walmart. Since Halloween stuff is just barely coming out, I did have to go to a few different places to get the items. I'm sure the dollar store has their snakes out by now. So yeah, most of the stuff came from the dollar store, which is nice. I like using dollar store stuff for my crafts. Yeah, but we're painting here. Painting, painting. Sometimes I'm just not sure what to say. Okay, so while I'm waiting for that first layer to paint, here's where I'm showing I painted one of the snakes black to show if you wanted to do all of them black, you can. And then I did the gold paint over it. It also gave me a snake to match the other 3, since you're going to have 2 snakes per candle. I didn't want like a black snake on there and then a blue snake, just because it didn't match. So go ahead and do the second layer, and then I'm waiting for those layers to dry some more. I painted that first one and it just wasn't dry all the way. So we're going to start on our next DIY, which is this beautiful little snake that I got from Target's One Spot Shop area. The gray and the pink is nice. I don't want to make it sound like those were terrible colors, but it just didn't match my aesthetic or any of my decorations. I don't have any pastel colors on my Halloween stuff. So I went ahead and started painting over him with the same black acrylic paint. And then we're going to go back in and paint his little triangles gold, and then that way he matches the candles and everything else that I have. So yeah, while we're waiting for the candles to dry, we're just painting this guy. He was actually kind of hard to paint because of all of the little scales, like you really had to get in there. His little curl up shape though is really interesting. Kind of reminds me of the you know what emoji. But yeah, it's different because normally you see him like coiled out a little bit more, and he's pretty stacked up here. So yeah, just went ahead and painted that. You can use as much paint as you would like, just to make sure it is dry. I only had to do 1 layer on him. The paint actually covered really well, so that was good, unlike the candles, which needed a little more layering in there. Okay, and he wasn't too hard to paint either. I just held the bottom of it, and then when the top dried, then I finished painting the bottom. But once I was done painting him, I went ahead and went back to the candles here to test out the second layer. And I definitely needed some more black paint. We're using a lot of it for these DIYs today. And then we'll also be painting the inside of these candles, which I'll show in a little bit. You can see that is the second layer. It looks a lot better. It's not streaky, and you have full coverage, so the 2 layers was perfect. And then we're going to go ahead and start painting the inside. Now when you paint the inside, just make sure that you're really careful not to get the flame. I did try holding it up like this, and I found out that my fingers actually peeled off some of the paint that wasn't all the way dry yet. So later on I will just paint them as they're standing up. If you want to leave the inside white, you are more than welcome to. I just wanted it to be a full black candle. It just looked nicer to me. That was definitely something that I wanted to do, personal preference. But yeah, just go ahead and paint the inside. You will also need 2 coats of black paint on the inside of these candles. And then another issue that I had is my long fingernails kept clipping at the paint, and so I would get these little streaks or chips off the sides of them. So if you have long fingernails too, just make sure that you're watching out for that, because your actual finger pad was fine on the paint. It was just my nails kept scratching at the paint there. So yeah, so you just go ahead and paint around. Be really careful not to touch the flame in the center. Again, these did come with batteries, but I purchased those extra ones just so I could have them on hand. And then once that dries, we can go ahead and do a second coat. And then I'm going to go ahead and move these snakes out of the way so we can start on our next DIY. Since everything was painted black, I just moved it around while I waited for things to dry and went back and forth between the different ones. These are some houses that I got from the Dollar Tree, not Dollar Tree, but Target's Dollar Spot. And they're just plain wood. You could definitely smell the wood when I had pulled them out. But we're going to make them into these little mini haunted houses. I don't know about you guys, but I feel like haunted houses cost way too much money. There's been some really nice ones that I wanted this year that were made out of metal, but they're like $50, and I just think that's ridiculous. But I'm not really sure what goes into making them. I'm sure it's because of the process with the metal. And then I found these wooden houses, and I just thought I would attempt to make some black houses myself. They are double-sided, so if you want to paint one side for Halloween and then paint the other side for another holiday, like fall or Christmas, then you can definitely do that with these. Okay, well, I'm just painting these black. Again, they actually soaked up a lot of the paint. I know a lot of people prime wood before they paint at it, but I just didn't see that. I didn't feel like it was necessary, especially since it's just a home decor item that would just be sitting on a shelf and wouldn't get a whole lot of wear and tear from being handled. Yeah, but you're just going to go ahead and paint it black. I painted all of the sides except for the bottom. I didn't worry about painting the bottom, but I also painted the chimney stacks black as well. If you want to leave them silver, you can, or you can paint them, really you can paint them any color that you want to, but this is how I had decided I was going to do it. But yeah, and then once I had those painted, I had to wait for those to dry as well. So there was a lot of waiting with this paint. But I guess that's what happens when you paint everything black. That's really a mood though, painting everything black. So I'm just going to go ahead and move these out of the way so I can finish up with the other items. So here is that black snake, or that orange snake, I think is what it was, orange or blue, and I painted it black. And then I'm just going to take some gold and put over it, and it looked the exact same as the ones that came in black. So if you're not able to find the black snakes, but you really like the way that it looks, don't worry, you can paint them and then just put the gold right over the top of it. And then I went ahead and did another coat to the other snakes just to make sure that they were fully covered. I really like the orange underneath these gold ones because it made the gold look more vibrant, especially with the orange peeking through. But the blue snakes, I had to make sure that it was fully covered because I didn't really like the blue coming through on them. Yeah, and then I will just go ahead and wait for those to dry as well, and then give these candles on the inside their second coat. And it's pretty easy. It's just a lot of waiting period for things to dry. But once it's all dried and everything, then you're going to go ahead and figure out how you want these placed. I did one on each side, kind of facing different directions. And I originally tried to hot glue these on, but the glue wasn't strong enough to hold the snakes around. Since it has to be curved, the rubber is going to have to be pulled in that direction. So the hot glue did not actually work out. And then I ended up using a super glue, which also came from the dollar store. I think you can buy like a pack of 4 or 5 of the super glue tubes. But yeah, so the hot glue that I'm showing here, it didn't actually work. it actually just peeled off, and it peeled off a lot of the paint too. So here's where I start using the super glue. Again, this came from the dollar store. You just put a very generous amount through the entire snake. I found that it was easier just to do the snake all at once and not in halves, because with the halves you could pull one side of it off by accident, and then that would pull your paint off the candle, and then you would have to repaint it. So it was better just to do all of it at once, and then get as much as you can on the head. The head had a really hard time sticking, and I think it was just because it was thicker than the rest of it. But you just go ahead and place it onto the candle in the direction that you're wanting it to go, and then hold it for about 60 seconds, and that's all it takes for the setting time. And then leave it for a full 24 hours before use so that it can fully harden per the directions on the hot glue. Not hot glue, super glue. Okay, so once that has been super glued on there, you can just go ahead and do one snake at a time. Again, being very generous with the head area, and then just place them kind of wherever you want them to be. I place them in the same general area as the ones from at home, just because I really like the way that they had looked. And then put in any super glue in areas that might be lifting or coming up. If you get super glue everywhere, it's okay. It's really easy to paint over, so that you can paint over those glossy areas and you won't even be able to tell. You won't even be able to notice. Yeah, but I just went ahead and did that same thing on all of them. I used about 2 snakes per candle. And this one, you can see I tried to do in halves, and it just pulled up a lot of the paint, and it was kind of a really big mess. So I would definitely do the snake all at once. It'll save you a lot of time too. Okay. Sometimes, I don't know what to say in these in-between parts. What are we waiting for? Oh, there it is. There's the candle. And once you're done gluing the snakes on, you can go back through with the black paint and paint over any areas that came up or lifted by the glue or got smeared when you were trying to put the snake on there, just to touch it up a little bit. Again, with my long fingernails, I kept clipping at the snake or at the paint, and so that the paint would keep lifting up, and so I had to correct those areas. You can see the little white spots. That's where all my nails were hitting the paint and chipping it off, and so I just painted over it really quick. It only took one coat to cover those up since they were so small. It wasn't really noticeable. And then just doing some more touch-ups here. I tried to super glue over where the hot glue is, but it just wasn't working, and so I'm actually going to have to pull these hot glue snakes off and do those again. But yeah, the candles are done from here, and then we're just going to finish up the haunted house here. I used a Poscata paintbrush pen, or like paint pen. They are water-based, but it still worked over the acrylic, and then I just drew in the yellow shapes of where I wanted the windows to go. Now, my phone that I used for filming did die, so I wasn't able to get the entire process, but after you put in the yellow windows, you just paint over with the black paint where you want the framing to be, and like the little dividers that you would see in the windows too. So yeah, and then you can just do a variety of them. You can look up references. I only did windows on the top half. You can paint a door if you want to, or you can paint little things in the windows. This one is really open to expression. If there's any theme that you're following, maybe you're doing a witch theme, you can paint a little witch in one of these windows. Or if you're doing monsters or goblins or anything like that. And I liked how these came out. But yeah, so I didn't get the rest of that because my phone died, but here is the ending piece. These are the candles with them turned on. I like that they flicker even though that they're LED. They're pretty nice candles coming from the dollar store, but it definitely matches my aesthetic with the black and the gold, and I just think that they're beautiful. And you can use them all year round instead of the wax candles that you would melt down, like the ones from at home. So I was really pleased with those. I really like them. I think they came out very nice. And then here is that snake guy. We painted the triangles gold and then his eyes. Again, I think it looks really pretty and it definitely matches my black and gold aesthetic. That mainly comes from my shadow goddesses. If you haven't seen those yet, go check out my Instagram. I will link it down below, but it's an oracle deck that I made. And then these are the haunted houses. You can see I use the black paint over the yellow to put in those window frames. And then if you just want them to be plain black, you can go ahead and flip them around. Or if you want to do another holiday on the other side, you can definitely do that too. Well, that's it for this week's video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and please consider subscribing. And until next time, keep on spooking all my ghouls and spookaneers.